Okay, Francis, I'll tell you what, and I don't want to go in depth in terms of this because I know that's going to be another episode. But honestly, it's the whole flat Earth thing that really got me into this. Now,
Mm.
some personal things happened to me, and I one of the things I'm curious about, and I want to ask you. Um, do you think conspiracy theories actually serve a purpose in society? Do you think it's kind of more fodder for the imagination and just things that people get carried away with, or do you think that it actually serves a purpose in society in terms of kind of gut checking the information that we are receiving?
I think it definitely. So I think it's a really complex tiger in the bush, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Oh yeah.
It's you really. I think it's really useful. But it's like extreme critical thinking. I think is
Mhm.
really useful, but then you can go too far. So of course,
Oh
I
yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's
Like with anything, I mean, it kind of becomes, fodder for the imagination, and it just becomes campfire ghost stories, so to speak. And
yeah.
see, the thing with me is I'm very, very practical, and I tend to be think very literally and very mathematically. And when something just goes off the chart, and it's just like, wait a minute, that doesn't really make sense. It's like, I mean, I agree with the premise that, I think we need to be able to question everything. That is extremely important. Because if we
Mhm.
can't question, then you have to literally question what kind of society that we're living in, to where, you don't have freedom of anything,
Mm.
and I think it's a really good litmus test to be able to question what is being imposed upon us. And throughout history, I mean, there's been many, many injustices that have happened, that maybe people thought were conspiracy theories, but then turned out to actually be true.
Yeah, yeah, and
So,
then conspiracy theories that are never obvious until like decades or 50, 100 years later, and then now
oh
we
yeah.
read about history and
Mm-hmm.
like I can imagine the Second World War, the Nazis were conspiracy theories and things like that, and gulags, and until everyone's dying, and
Oh
this is what the conspiracy theorists probably think, but then many of them don't. I think we have much more that don't than do, but
right.
yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. No, I think there's a lot of premise to that, because it's like, even kind of going back to, not, I'm not going to focus on this, but like the Nazis and everything. I mean, what they were trying to accomplish, they were actually trying to create like a utopian environment for some of the cities that they were taking over and everything, and try to make it very park like and just friendly and just in festivals and everything. And they were putting on this facade, and while in the background, there was like total world domination in mind, and complete and total
Mm.
genocide. you know so I
Yeah.
think, history has shown us, that, and I think this has spawned a lot of modern day conspiracy theories, because we don't know what we can trust. We don't know what we're receiving as propaganda. We don't know what we're receiving is rhetoric, and dogma from some sort of
Mhm.
realism that's really, painting a nice fuzzy, friendly picture. But then really the horror of the idealism is actually out of control. So I mean, my question, to you would be, I mean, what is a what have you experienced personally in terms of like a conspiracy theory that, everybody thought was just a theory that you actually believe is true, or that has been proven true?
So I'm gonna be a bit careful now.
Yeah, well, yeah,
People,
of course. But
yeah, I forget this is going to go out live. And so, my upbringing, I was since around 18, 19, I just started reading everything I could get my hands on, try and find out what's going on. So spiritual books. I was reading into Buddhism, Hinduism, Sufism. Christianity would pop in everywhere, of course. I looked a bit of Islam, but I wasn't interested in that. Um, and then esoteric stuff and everything I could get my hands on. And then for, I would say 20, maybe nearly 15 years, just endless rabbit holes going down all over the place. While then living in Wales and living amongst hundreds of Freemasons, and I met the Templars, modern day Templars, which was interesting. But all these people, like these secret societies, they all exist. The Freemasons are all over the place, especially
Oh, yeah.
the UK, and then Knights Templar, and then a bit of contact with some people from Priory de Zion, which is was that, yeah, I'd have to tell you that off cam. I don't want to get relative friends I know.
Right.
Are these scary? Well,
Nope.
after talking about these people, they were yeah, off cam. I don't. These people, I know they can follow you find you on digitally and track you and that kind of stuff, which was a bit scary. But yeah, so then after around 50 years of that, I just got tired. I remember the day I was watching. There was 3 videos. I can't remember what they were called. There were 3 15-hour videos of the endless links between everything, the buildings all across America, the buildings in the UK, the histories, all the links of all the civilizations all over the world, how they all link together, how everything links together, who's in control, and I got, I think, 3 hours in, and I this is just ridiculous. I waste my life chasing these, end up getting myself involved or not. I thought about joining the Freemasons to try and find out, and I thought, this is just crazy.
You like joining
So
them all.
I did have relatives as well, grandparents, both sides, that were Freemasons, and so then I decided, no way, I'm just
Yeah.
going to start studying the science and practicing myself. So I studied physics, and then just started practicing probably my favorite philosopher, Sam Harris. I found out later that he's also very heavily into meditation and trained by some of the best teachers in the 20th century. So he started teaching, so I started practicing mindfulness, and then just finding that there's more to find in myself and in science. And then if there is anything supernatural, any real conspiracy, it's in control. I can't control it anyway, and I'll be able to find secrets myself within myself, and then through science, and science will find it anyway. You can't hold back science. So that's where I am now, really.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, like a lot of these conspiracy theories, like flat Earth, they tend to bastardize and villainize, science and, actual like linear mathematical studies, but I mean, all that science really is just the study of, that's where you get the suffix ology, science, whatever ology it is, Scientology or physiology, it's ology is just the study of, it's just you have the 1 + 1 = 2, and then there you go, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think here's my take on conspiracy theories, and I'm not an anti-conspiracy theorist at all, but I don't believe in filling in the blanks with imagination and with conjecture and just kind of going off in that rabbit hole. To me, it's like putting on a pair of colored glasses. Once you put the glasses on, it's like everything looks that way. So when people tend to put conspiracy glasses on, well, there's nothing that is not a conspiracy. Everything's a lie and nothing's real. And to me, that can be kind of dangerous in a way, because I think not everybody has the most stable foundation psychologically, and I think that people can really get lost in that, and can cause some antisocial issues potentially. So I guess that's part of the one of the reasons why I don't like conjecture based conspiracy fantasy of of the mind, I guess, because I think a lot of people can get lost and lose themselves.
And then again, on the other side is the when there's a complete denial that some of these things exist,
Hmm.
that's when they can control, because when you don't know something exists, it can control you quite well. So
Truth.
that's where both sides is really like there is. It's undeniable that I'm sure you know of the Bilderberg and the all of these things really exist,
Hmm.
but not to the extent that people think they are. So
Right.
and we don't really know. We don't really know. So then the gaps. That's where all the fill in the gaps come in. That the lizard people and all of that stuff. And
Right. I know exactly, which is fun to entertain. I'll tell you that much. I mean,
definitely.
personally, yeah. I mean, personally, I kind of look at it like a pendulum. A pendulum has 3 points. Okay, it has dead center, which is at rest. It has extreme, the extreme left, extreme right, and
Mm.
I think the best viewpoint, personally for me, would be just dead center because either extreme, you are in a bias.
Mm.
So when you pull the pendulum to one extreme, that's a bias, and it goes to the other extreme, that's a bias. Dead center is basically a solid
Yeah.
viewpoint where you can draw from either extremes and then come to a conclusion that's based on the information from those extremes, not just be residing at one extreme and then everything is that color. So I think it's just
Yeah.
a view.
Exactly. Unfortunately, I think the people on both extremes, they judge you as being on the each extreme if you're in the
Right.
center.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, and then that skews, being at an extreme skews that it skews that perspective, their perspective of you, as being the other extreme when you're actually trying to be neutral, or then maybe you are on the other extreme.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to me, one of the things that I always tell people, it's just like, being completely naive and asleep is not wise, but conspiracy psychosis is none the wiser either.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to be as open-minded to accept anything, but then I don't believe anything, which
Well,
is
yeah,
summarizing it.
right. Well, that's that the vagary of perception, that we kind of all draw from, and I want to express something too, because it's like I have actually experienced some things that to where, I'm not naive. I am not asleep. I am not, a sheep of the system or whatever you want to call it. But I have
Mm.
experienced I grew up in Arizona, my home state. And I
Hmm.
remember back I was like in my early 20s, like late 20s, 97. And I had experienced something that hundreds of experienced people in that area had experienced. And we had, I think it was September 13th of 97. We had these strange lights appear in the sky, just like
Mm.
in a formation that just maintained a pattern in the sky for hours. And this made national news. This became like a big thing, and I guess and where I live there was like a military base, like a kind of like an old military base that's really not in use anymore. But it's kind of odd because even at night I would hear strange things coming from this area, and I don't know what those things were. Kind of just like aeronautical something. You could hear the something flying, but I'm like, that doesn't sound like a plane. It doesn't sound like a helicopter. What is it? But
Yeah.
when these lights happened, I remember I was out because where I lived, it kind of backed up to kind of open desert, and you kind of had like the Phoenix Zoo and the botanical garden right there and everything. And there's like these little mountains you can climb and stuff, and I would always be climbing these trails. And I always used to like to jog at night because that way, it's just like the trails, it's yours and nobody else is out there. And I remember being out there and I remember seeing these lights in the distance. And I'm like, what is that? And there was other people when I walked back down to the neighborhood, and I'm like, there's other people outside their houses and everyone's looking at this. I'm like, what's going on here? You know, and it was the military came out and they said that those were flares. Those were just military flares that they were testing or doing something with. And it does. How does that make sense? I mean, something that's staying stationary in a V pattern for hours. What can maintain that type of orbit where it's just, not doing anything but just staying there. And I'm like, there's got to be something more to that. So I am not under the influence that we are, completely and utterly alone, because we're not. I mean, I think it would be very naive and foolish to think that we are, the only living organisms in this universe. So I'm up for interpretation, in terms of what those lights were. And I mean, we can intertwine this into Area 51. I mean, so many different aspects we could play off of here. But ultimately, to me, in my mind, those lights remain unexplained. And it doesn't exactly bode very well for trusting the government. Doesn't trust, for not trusting the military. So I mean, I can see how people believe in conspiracy theories, and I think that it's a necessary gut check to be able to, figure out what is going on around us.
Yeah, I think I'd seen a couple. I remember out having a cigarette with my neighbor, brother-in-law, and looking at the moon. I sort of was looking at the moon, and just staring at the moon, and just having a cigarette with him. And he was looking at it too. We're both looking at the moon, thinking it's wow, the moon's massive. How come it's so massive? And it's kind of dark orange today. And then I went across to my house, and my brothers and sisters were there. And I just said to them, wow, we were just looking at the moon. And just halfway through the conversation, I saw out the window facing the other way, the other end of the sky. And there's the moon, looking quite normal.
Oh, wow.
And I was, and then, of course, no one believed me. And I go back, and the moon's gone from the other side. So, and he's gone to bed. So then no one believed me, really. It's another. I remember cycling through the countryside and cycled past a gate, and I just heard crazy like electronic sounds, like remember those little like toy plastic things that had the different sounds in that you'd press.
Yeah.
It was like that, but much louder, much better quality sound, and then weird flashy lights. And I just remember flying past the gateway and just seeing the flash of it and hearing the flash, and then just running back, and there was nothing there. But then then coupled with that is maybe almost about 15 years of so I practiced Buddhism, and I practiced these, and then for about 15 years I've been working with the Christian institution, and then you just start we have daily prayers and all of this, and so I'd be having these prayers, and I'd start doing small prayers. Of course, big prayers you can't ask for a gold brick like Tom Jump does. You don't get, but literally thousands and thousands of small, incredible coincidence prayers answered. Like one example, I've told it so many times, but I was just so amazed by this. I would be writing lesson plans, and I'd pray, can I finish this lesson plan by the end of this period? I've got one period to write it. Please, can I finish it? And literally like 20 times this happened. The last time I would type the period at the last end thing, the second after the bell would go. And this happened like 20 times. It's so many times that it was just incredible. But then I don't know how powerful the mind is. Like I know you can set a mental alarm and wake up at a time and all these things. So I'm completely open-minded to any possibility there. But you disappeared.
Oh yeah, that's. I mean, if there's no explanation, I mean, if there's nothing you can come up with that would explain away, then there's got to be something more happening here, And honestly, I've experienced. I want to relate something else that I experienced. As you can see, because we were showing off guitars, I'm a musician, and not any braggadocious way or anything, but I've gone to school for recording engineering. That's one of the things I've actually done. And this was kind of back in the day, like early 2000s. And I remember I had brought my drummer in from my band to lay down some drum tracks, and I was just going to record him. So I had recorded him, doing one of our songs. And that the session went fine. Everything was good. And this was done it's in a college setting. It's in a school. But the studio, it's a pro studio though. So, I mean, it was, completely soundproofed. We got the control room, we had the booth and everything, and with the drums and everything. And we were using condenser mics, which are extremely powerful. And I remember, after I had recorded him, I came back the next morning to do the mix down on the tape. And this is back in the day when, I don't know if you're familiar, but we used something called ADATs. These were they look like VCR cassette tapes. They're the exact same shell and everything as a VCR cassette tape, except some of the tape actually was magnetic. The other part of it was digital information. So, I plopped the ADAT into the ADAT machine to do the mix down. And I started mixing, and I remember getting to the end. Well, I got to close this because I've got noise going on over here. But anyways, I remember getting to the end of the tape, and I had it cranked up because you want to hear everything loud. You want to hear all the nuances of everything that's going on with the drums and stuff. And I remember I just heard like a weird whispery voice. I'm like, what is going on here? What is that? So I jogged the tape back, I rewound it, and I played it again, just focusing on the channel that voice was on. And it just sounded like a disembodied voice of a child. And what it said, what I can make out that it said is, "I now come here." And I'm like, what? So I played this back probably about 15 to 20 times, trying to figure out what was going, because nothing makes sense. The only people in that studio was me and the drummer, nobody else. I was the only engineer, and he was the only musician in there. And it was completely closed off, totally soundproofed, nothing going on outside. And all of a sudden there's this kind of disembodied sing-songy kind of voice just saying, "I now come here." And I'm like, what does that mean? First off, I mean, who's coming where? I mean, what is this? And I was just like, the only possibility I can come up with is just like literally like paranormal, because anything else would make sense to me. I mean, it was completely silent. And I played it for him, and we probably listened to it for another like 30 to 50 times, just like contemplating what was going on there. And I mean, this, we're like, okay, well, this tape was not new, or wasn't used. I'm sorry, it wasn't used. I mean, I actually unsealed it from its box when I ordered it, so should be nothing on there to begin with. And unfortunately, I don't have the tape anymore. I mean, if I did, it would probably have disintegrated a long time ago. But I wish I still had it, because I would love to, bring that to light and be like, listen to this. And I learned, I did learn later, sometime later, that what that is called an EVP, and I guess it's a external voice perception. I can't remember what the acronym is exactly, but it's called an EVP, where you just have some sort of like almost like a representation of a voice that got recorded somehow. And it still freaks me out to this day. I mean, I don't know if something that was, shouldn't have been there was there and kind of got caught on tape, or what happened. So yeah, that freaked me out pretty good.
It's annoying because there's so much people that make stuff up that these kind of stories just get lost, and
I know,
which is, it's really annoying.
Oh, well, yeah, because then it kind of like, stultifies, our own personal experience. And then it's just, then you have, "Oh no, dear, it's flat. It's flat." I mean, not picking on that, but I mean, just kind of idiocy, it's just, so much fodder for the imagination. But then again, it makes it more difficult to explain what does actually happen. And we really can't put any rhyme or reason to why it happened.
Yeah, and there's so many of these stories. I've got tons of these stories. mostly about like many dreams that have come true. Myself, my mother, us two, for some reason, have dreams that come true every now and then, which is kind of creepy.
Oh,
She she's had. I remember there was in the UK there was a big a ferry sunk, um,
wow.
and the day before she dreamt a ship sunk, and then the
Oh,
next day a ship sunk, and I've had many different dreams of teaching, and had a dreams of things happening in class, and they've happened the next day, and but then you never know if your mind has created the dream in real
right.
time as well, which is annoying.
That's true. That's true.
Although
And
there's times
yeah, so,
I've dreamt and called those people. I've called my mother, called my brother. Like I called my mother saying, "Now I had a dream that this man went out to buy equipment to fix your door and shaved the bottom of the door off." He said, "This is crazy because Trev, my father-in-law, fixed the door this morning, and he shaved the bottom of the door off, and all this weird stuff that just." Another one, my partner, she's working in a hotel, and she had a very old, very wealthy Jewish man working there, living there, and he'd asked for this special Jewish soup. I can't remember what it was. Really weird Jewish soup, and she tried to get it, and he explained it to her, and she didn't tell anyone. And then a lady she works with always has these kind of dreams, and she dreamt that he was going to get sick and go into hospital. The next few days, he got sick, went into hospital. Then she dreamt that he was really happy eating this weird soup, and she explained it to my partner, and she just went really cold and said, last night he died in hospital." And she said, "What's the soup?" And my partner showed her the picture of the soup that he asked for, and she said, "That's exactly the soup he was eating in the dream." And like this kind of
wow.
stuff is just like, it's just there's no explanation, but then it's great. It makes me feel really happy. This kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Another one more, and then I'll stop. But my boss asked a Sri Lankan seer, one of these people who does the like your cosmological chart of when you were born and this, and he saw that this was last year, and he said everything's going to be good, along with loads of other stuff. He told me where scars were on my body, where injuries I've had were I hadn't told anyone, all this stuff, like 4 or 5 injuries I'd had. And then he said everything's going to be fine for 15 years. And I thought, okay, that sounds a bit heavy. Um, then about a few months ago, my brother passed away from cancer, 56.
Sure.
And I'd be 56 in the 15 years. My father died when he was 56. My grandfather died when he was 56. And these
Mhm.
things I only found out after this. And so there's all these things that are just really peculiar. And it gives me kind of hope there's something there. But I'm like
Oh,
you, nothing definite yet.
yeah, yeah, definitely. No, I mean, I think you're kind of touching on something because you're kind of like talking about these premonitions and um have you I'm assuming you've seen the movie The Matrix?
Oh, I love it. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
love it.
I mean, that has probably has become in my top 5 movies. Because the reason being, and it's, of course it's all, pretty much fantasy, but the premise of it is literally basically describing us in our system. Kind of like you were describing about premonitions. I mean, those would be kind of glitches in the matrix, so to speak. You know,
Yeah,
and it's interesting because taking a look at referencing that movie. You have like the Zion, which we are, the reality, and then you have the Matrix, which we live in. And the Matrix is just kind of, again, it's kind of like the utopia that supposedly utopia that is created for us, this comfort of living, and then behind the scenes you do have Zion, where you have big money changing hands, power changing hands. You have politics going on, you have all kinds of strings that are being pulled in every which direction, to sway whatever power, whatever is going on, that we are not seeing. And it's interesting that, you know, the more you realize, the more you think about that type of structure, the more you realize it's actually real, because it's like we are here supporting the system, you know, all of
Yeah.
us, you know, our off of our backs, our hard work, you know, our tax dollars, it's going to feed the system, you know. And it's quite interesting, because once you actually, and this is where I'm going to kind of just shift a little bit here, because it's like, you know, I think in terms of conspiracy theories, I think we look a little too hard sometimes. I think we're trying to look for the hidden. We're trying to look under the nooks and crannies, and look for the intentionally disguised and everything. But if you think, a lot of things are disguised in plain sight, and they're not even really disguised. They are just more normalized, and we're socially conditioned to kind of interact with these aspects of society, that are to not to our benefit. You know, it is to, you know, it is to the higher powers benefit. And but these are just normal things, you know, just money is a great example of this, financial things. I mean, one of my main gigs is I work in the financial industry, and I actually, you know, have kind of started that's not really started paying attention, because then you start to understand how money works, and you understand how, you know, the flow of it works, and how it's meant to, who it's meant to benefit, who it's meant to not. And one thing, I covered this on the last show we did, just briefly, and I know it seems like it has nothing to do with anything, and what's that have to do with the price of tea in China, you know? But I asked this question, and it's interesting, because this shows we really don't think. We just kind of gliss over everything. And I'm going to ask you the meaning of a word, and I just want you to tell me, and it's not to stultify you or in any way, but it's just to see what your perception is. The word is mortgage. What does that word mean to you, a mortgage?
I gotta give me a second. It's a
Yeah.
heavy word. It's debt.
Yeah.
It's a loan. Yeah.
Definitely
Yeah.
debt.
It's a fancy way of making a loan seem like a house for free.
Right. That's part of the
Yeah.
perception. Definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know this is completely like I veered off course, but I really, you know, am making a point here, because what I'm trying to get across is just, you don't have to be a conspiracy, you know, tinfoil hat, and, you know, like, whoa, everything's a lie, you know. I mean, it's just, these things are in plain sight, and we just have to be cognizant of them. We have to understand them. So what I'm going to do is explain this to you. The word mortgage, you have a prefix and suffix.
Dead engagement for death, then, is it?
Yeah, yes. There you go. There you go.
Sorry.
But a lot of people don't put it together, because mort, okay, what is that? You know, it's plain, it's simple.
A
Mort.
deal with the devil. A deal with
Yeah,
death. Yeah.
exactly. Mortality, morbidity, that has to deal with the death. The
More,
word
yeah. French
gauge
for death.
is a measurement, and it's like an agreement or a measurement is really what that means. And that is pertaining to, I mean, it's in terms of financial language, in financial lingo, that is pertaining to a measurement in time. So to gauge something, it's measurement in time. So what you are doing when you're signing a mortgage is signing an agreement until death, and which is pertaining to the amortization of the interest of the loan, meaning it's never meant to be paid off, which is parlaying to compound interest. And that is how our society uses debt against us, in terms of leveraging that compound interest for their benefits, while we are enslaved. So
Not only debt is then to the people that can afford to buy your life from you until you retire, which is
very true. So that's, you know, just under, and that to me, I mean, I kind of almost felt like I was like, I becoming Neo for a second there. I'm like seeing everything in code and be like, whoa, because then you start to realize wait a minute, it's the conspiracy is not, it's not under your bed. It's not hidden away in a closet. It is
on your
literally
alarm, 6 o'clock every
around.
morning.
Yeah, we go to work and we bust our ass for it, and it is to support the system, and we make just enough to survive, you know, and while the system is benefiting off the compounding interest.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised so many people haven't risen up, because especially now, seeing as COVID hits and the rich survive, the poor die.
Mm-hmm.
Like they sit back and cry in their mansions, like Ellen, that they're locked in a prison. Poor lady.
Mm-hmm.
Although she's just a celebrity, and that she's speaking
Yeah.
something that millions are not saying but doing, and
Mm-hmm.
and then the poor are just dying in streets, and they're not like rising up, because it's
No.
it's wild. The system's just wild.
Oh yeah.
It's got to end sometime.
It's systemically out of control, and it's greed still rules. It's unfortunate, but it's there. But what I'm trying to get people to understand is to at the very least, I mean, okay, we cannot single-handedly abolish the system and reform it and redo it, because it's like, I think it's in our nature. Corruptness is in our nature, and yes, please.
I think there is. Well, I'm writing a book about it, actually. I got a whole plan for the system, but we could get into that after if you want.
No, definitely.
Idea.
We'd love to hear about it. But yeah, I mean, it is just, I just want people to understand that, if they understand some of the ground rules of the system that we're a part of, if you understand, if you stop and pay attention to the meaning of words, because if you understand the actual meaning of words, you understand tensions behind those words, like mortgage, that it's built into there, and that was a big wake up call for me, because I'm like, wait, we are meant to be enslaved in debt. And I'm like, no. So how do we buck that? How do we get out of this? And that is to be able to do something that creates some sort of personal, empowerment and personal wealth. Easier said than done. I get it, but at the same time, just to lay back and just to be a part of that, and just to pay into the system and pay into it, and then you die. I think there's got to be life to this.
I think the system, there has to be some kind of system. I got an idea for a system, but I think there's always two choices. I think there was one, either just live in the trees, natural life, but then the Earth's gonna die. So that's where I'm with Elon then. Earth's gonna die one day, and humanity has to survive. So we have to get advanced enough to get off. That's the only reason, I think, for like working so hard as humans. That's the end, I think, is humanity to survive. Otherwise, we should just be hanging out in trees.
Yeah. Right.
Because it's just a waste of time.
It's true. No, that's true. That's true. And I mean, even our educational system, that's another aspect too. There's another conspiracy right there, but that there's factual basis for this. I mean, the reason for curriculumized education in the early part of like the 1900s, a lot of people, think, well, it's just to get, to be able to get degrees, to get better jobs. And that's not necessarily so. I think initially the reason for the curriculumized education was to put people in factories. It's to create compliance, to get people to conform, to be compliant. So that way we can then just shuffle them into factories, where they can just work and make the steel and make the machinery and, whatever it is, or agricultural. But it's just to get people educated and indoctrinated enough to, put them in shackles.
Yeah, it's getting there slowly, but really slowly. There's only like Finland, a few, the high in America. Then some of your charter schools, they do the proper education, concept based, project based learning,
right,
where they learn they learn major topics and then they incorporate every skill into the one topic. But yeah, everyone else is too. I'm in a school and everyone has to be on board, that kind of thing, and many people just see it as a fad and don't understand it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, part of me is like piping mad at the educational system because it's like this is how dumbfounded I am with our educational system. Okay, and I don't mean to turn this into something so sterile sounding, but you know what? I mean, here's the thing. In modern day society, not talking about the intentions of why we were putting people in a curriculumized educational system to begin with, but in terms of going to school, getting a degree, I believe the premise was to better ourselves and to be able to become better breadwinners and be able to obtain a better, higher position stature in society and in our lives. But the educational system focuses just on churning out employees and putting people in jobs, and there's very little higher aspect to it. I mean, even in mathematics, we teach all kinds of irrelevant stuff that most of us will never use, and they make sure that we're proficient in it. But at the same time, you ever heard of the rule of 72?
No.
See, this is one of the things
I've heard it. I just can't remember it though. I'm maybe start me off.
Yeah, sorry. This is basically what this is it's an investment principle that could actually benefit people. So you take the number 72. I don't know why it works like this, but it works out mathematically. Take the number 72. If you have your money invested, you take the interest rate that you are getting, divide it into 72, and that will give you in terms of how many years it will take you to reach a doubling period with your money. I mean, something that's extremely useful, that you can benefit and leverage to your advantage, and it's not even taught. I mean, we're learning all this other stuff, trigonometry and everything, and algebra, and but they do not focus at all on just the most basic investment principles that can make a huge difference in someone's life.
Yeah, we have that actually in our school. The owner, and he's so right. The owner of the school often says, "Well, we need to teach these kids how to look after money. Everyone's in debt at the moment. We need to teach this kind of stuff." And instead of teaching like this business model, that business model, when actually teach them life business models that'll help them when they grow up. Yeah.
And I think that's severely lacking. So anyways, do you have anything that you would want to touch on that's a conspiracy theory? Anything that you want to go into?
Well, the whole basis of all, like everything I'm interested in now. So when the biggest thing I got into free will and determinism, and that's what spurred my whole book, really.
Okay.
And that's what spurred me getting interested in science, and then just finding there's really no basis for free will anywhere, really. It's almost, and then I took it even further. I think then, but this could be a conspiracy theory. I think that consciousness itself doesn't actually exist. Where I'm a kind of 100% materialist, where everything is we're just biological robots. Everything we think is just neurons. It's just molecules working. That could then be created by. I haven't met anyone that has this kind of view, but I think it could have all been created for some reason, like the clockwork universe created for something, because all these strange coincidences, all these things happen are just just incredible. But then then I take it further that we don't have free will. Everything's completely determined. Then everything needs to change. Our education system, childcare, deciding to have children, people should really pass a test, not because they shouldn't be allowed to have kids if they are not going to be good parents, but then they should be good parents before they have kids. So it's not like a test, it's like a training. Then education systems need to be changed drastically, because there's no child, everyone knows that there's no child that decides to fail. like there's no human that decides to fail or decides to succeed. It's not like Jeff Bezos decided to be Jeff Bezos, because if he did, we could all decide to be Jeff Bezos. So it's
Or
not
could,
free will.
yeah.
Like if it's that easy, if it's just your will, then you can just go to free will school and
Mhm.
everyone can just decide to do whatever they want. And it's just a lie. And well, it's not a lie. It's something that everyone feels exists. Yeah. So then crime and punishment. So going from birth all the way to crime and punishment,
Mhm.
then no one is really guilty. So all of all prisons need to be rehabilitation centers. Then, of course, restraining centers. We can't let people that like to kill people go out into public. They need to be kept somewhere where they can't kill people
Yeah.
until we can fix them. Or yeah. So
Yeah. But
then the world is just taking care of this world that we live in, because it's not our fault. We didn't choose to come here. And
no.
yeah.
It's I think you're hitting on something here because there's a lot, I think our dysfunction as a society runs very, very deep. And not to try to tread this back to money here, but I mean, I have this argument with people sometimes, and people will have cliches like, oh, well, money can't buy you happiness, and money, 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 and all these cliches that they're patting themselves on the back because they're trying to defend not having it, and
Yeah.
my
Or having it.
my interest, you can take, and this is going to kind of parlay it back to what we're talking about too, in terms of determinism versus free will. um, you can take money out of the equation completely. Okay, let's just say that money does not exist and we've kind of come up with some other barter system to where it's just fair and equal. You can take money out of the equation, and human nature will always find a way to express itself, whether it's good, bad, ugly, indifferent. Um,
Mm.
we, you can take what you think are the bad elements out of society. So we can take money away, guns away, blah 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 blah. But it's always going to come back to human nature has a propensity to be corrupt, because no matter what you take away, those elements will always be expressed, and they will materialize in some other way, even
Mm.
though you have eliminated what you thought was, or what we thought as a society was the problem. And I think this kind of lends itself back into the free will aspect, because it's like, we have choices to make as human beings. We have
Mm.
choices. It does come down to simple right and wrong, but it also comes down to moral decisions that we must make in accordance with the values of the society that we live in. So there's so many different, this is like peeling back an onion, this subject, really. There's so many different layers.
Yeah. That then, like, yeah, like Christopher Hitchens says, I have no choice to believe we have free will. I love that quote because that sums up everything there. Then, um, you definitely you have a responsibility to make the right choice, but if you make the wrong choice, you're not held responsible for it. That's what
Right.
I'd say.
Yeah.
So
So that is conditioned free will. It's
yeah,
conditioned free will.
so you have to make the right choices. Like I hate making choices because I know the consequences often, especially in education. I know the consequences of my choices could mean a child's life goes like you're making forks all the time in
Oh
people's
yeah.
lives, which is terrifying but amazing then at the same time. But then, like, you can't describe or define why you made this choice, that choice, ever. Even if it's the most complex choice that you took months and months, you choose one, it's the wrong one, you can't go back and change it, or you couldn't have chose the other choice. It's and then that's just the internal dialogue you'd have, like the psychology behind it. So
Oh
then you
yeah.
have to go back to the science, and the science just there's nothing that says we have free will.
No. No. No.
Quantum
That's just
physics shows that our will makes things strange happen in subatomic particles, but then it doesn't say where the will comes from. So it's still so
that's
really I think it's just an illusion that we think we have, and
yeah.
uh,
I the majority of, I mean, see, that's the thing. That's one of the things that will always keep conspiracy theories alive. It's just the fact that, the construct that we feel that we are expressing, is not really anything. It's just shadows and dust. It's like poof. It could, this is all just kind of like its own head trip, that
Mm.
we're imposing on ourselves, and we are again having imposed upon us by the quote unquote matrix or the system, to keep us in place for its betterment. So, it's like you don't have to exactly be a trusting, blind sheep to understand that, we're being played. I mean, we're being played 20 ways from Tuesday,
Yeah.
and many.
Um, and we're being played by that as well. If I studied NLP and a bit of psychology and the use of psychology on people, and we're being used by our lack of free will and control of our mind. We're being used all the time.
Mhm.
Advertising, all this kind of stuff, as we're
Oh,
being used, targeted. They get taught these techniques, definitely in finances and advertising. Just all the time, we're being coerced. I don't know if you saw the British magician. I can't remember his name. Darren Brown's, where he placed enough markers in a man's mind to make him rob a money van.
oh
Did
wow.
you? It was amazing. I think it was over 3 or 4 days. I think he'd put all these different signposts around him, like posters and this and that, and then he laid the scene out ready for him. There was a I think a gun there, plastic gun. He didn't know it was plastic, but a gun left there, and then they had the armored vehicle with the money, and he set the whole scene up and made him ready to rob it, and he robbed it. A
Oh
complete
wow.
stranger, just so
That's
they
very.
can.
You can kind of like literally implant a set of behaviors in somebody,
Yeah,
and then you can somehow circumvent, you can kind of short circuit those imposed moral qualities that we live by, and then you can erode that, and then you can actually set them on a path to where they can be controlled to achieve a certain outcome that you desire. That is
yeah,
scary. That's
and that's
frightening.
and he's just a magician. And then there's these huge companies that train their staff. My younger brother worked for a very large company in the UK that works with defence. He's just a computer engineer, but he worked with these defence companies, and I was learning some of these because I'm just interested in hypnotherapy, NLP, and a few of these courses. And he's learning the same thing professionally, sent on training camps with all of his staff, and to learn these same kind of techniques to understand people. I'm using it for therapy. They were using it for manipulation, and so I can't imagine what's going on in Google, Coca-Cola, and these kind Facebook, and
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
put it to you this way, the manipulation goes very, very deep. I remember watching a documentary. I can't remember what it was specifically about, but I remember there was a segment of it where they were explaining how advertising really has us entrapped. And I remember them talking. They took something very simple, it's very mundane. They went down the aisle of the grocery store where they were showing cereal boxes, and they made a really good point. And they basically said, they asked, do you think that these cereal boxes were designed by artists? And no, they are not. They are actually designed by sociologists.
Psychologist, yeah. Yeah.
They are actually. I mean, everything from the colors that are used, and the font type, and the font style, and the placement of everything on the box, and the size of the box. It is all designed to make us, the consumer, pick that up and put that in the cart. It's also designed specifically to make your child pick it up and put it in the cart. So, there's again, I'm going kind of back to the normal cues, that are not necessarily conspiracy theories, but are just There are just the indicating factors that we live with every day that do pull us into different directions and can make us rob a bank. And I mean, it's just the influence that we have upon us at all times is enormous and immense. And
Or
yeah.
worse is they train us to give our whole life money to the bank.
Oh yeah. Oh,
So they train us to give the bank our money. So
oh yeah. Banks are ridiculous. They are the epitome of societal control, because here we are giving the banks our money. They're paying us a glorified 0.198% interest rate, and
yeah.
and then they're taking our money, investing it in the global economy, and making 18 to 25% rate of return off of our money, and then giving us a credit card at 24% interest rate. And yeah, so we're being completely played. So really my end point here is just the conspiracy theories that are true are not even really conspiracy theories. They are just the construct of the system that we have to live in. That we're, unless you are an Aborigine and you live on an island somewhere, and you get up in trees and slam coconuts to the ground and hunt for your meals.
Mm.
But
How do we?
we're all a part of this. Where every one of us is a part of this. And my point is to, I want to see people be able to not sit here and get caught in our own heads and just be, wow, everything's a conspiracy. Oh my gosh. No, that's not what it's about. It's not that you're not being smart, you're not being intelligent, you're not being intuitive because you think everything's a lie. You're being smart and intuitive that you can take the clues around you and be able to go, okay, I want to better my family's life, and how do I leverage this system that is leveraged against us for the betterment of those around me and for the betterment of everybody that is stuck in this system. That's really the point I'm trying to make, is how do we leverage it to our benefit?
Oh, how do we change it?
Yeah, how do we change it? Yeah, and that being able to have a level of awareness that facilitates being able to start change. That's what I want people to get to. So I mean, being stuck in, oh, the Earth is flat and all, it doesn't really matter, because no, it really doesn't matter. Because I mean, actually, science proves that it's not. And I'm not going there. I'm not going there because I know we're going to save this all up for something else. But it's just kind of, we're kind of head tripping ourselves into things that are not so important, while
Yeah.
our lives are suffering. We're not focused on the important things that could be bettering things for our children and our families.
I don't know how it could ever change, because to educate everyone enough, because a massive problem is the majority of religious people in the world. Like, no, there's nothing wrong with. There's obviously only one religion. There's only one true reality of the universe, and when we
Mhm.
find that out, every other religion just dies. Everything dies because of truth. And I think science will find it before the religions, um, or find out which religion is true, and
Mhm.
then they're all gone. But then all of these religions, and then flat Earth is kind of one of them.
Yeah,
These and the majority of humans follow all of these, so to educate them is going to take, I don't know how long.
I know.
Like if
Oh yeah.
I
Well,
think
yeah.
we're going to get, we'll have the singularity, the AI, general intelligence, artificial intelligence is going to be, that's going to come about before we do that, and then I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what you think about that.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing. So it's like we're kind of like racing. We're kind of in a race in against time in a way, many ways. In terms of a system that is just going to. I mean, we're already doing it right now. We're doing it on social media, on Facebook, on everything. I mean, our eyeballs. What our eyeballs are zoning in on is extremely valuable. Our
Yeah.
clicks are extremely valuable.
Yeah.
And It's this we're being harnessed. So the more AI comes to fruition as its own, formidable, force in our lives, the more that we are. I mean, it's just like, our arms already strapped, and another strap goes around and just tightens up even more to where we just, we are just literally part of that matrix.
Mm.
So
But then
yeah.
I think it'd be worse. Well, I don't know what it's going to be like. When Sam Harris talks about this, actually, he talks, it's going to be like, imagine two humans or two men in a warehouse full of 1,000 dogs, and they're talking about how they're going to slaughter them the next day.
Mhm.
And they can even put them in little groups, and they're all going to be friendly up until the
Yep.
moment when they all die. And
It's
that
very true.
AI might figure out that they'd like to live in a nice, peaceful world with trees without humans, and then suddenly one day we all die. And
It could be. It could be. I mean, if AI, eventually kind of takes on its own, I mean, it's so weird because it's just like it's just fantasy. Well, yes and no. It's
yeah,
fantasy in a respect in terms of what we're thinking, but it's not fantasy in terms of what is actually coming out right now.
and every single country in the world is now in a race to get there.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah.
they're trying to get there before the others, because if they get there before the others, their AI is going to be more powerful than the others. It's the new nuclear bomb, and
Yeah. And
they
it's
don't realize. Go
Oh
ahead.
no, they don't. They don't realize that. I apologize. You know what? But it's. I think the danger comes when AI gets to the point where it has the computational power for self intuition
Yeah,
and
that's
self
what I mean.
self awareness. And then we've got something which could at some point be legitimately a life force. And that's when things are going to change. That's when we're going to be in the Matrix, being Neo battling the machines. Because
And we'll,
yeah, there's a
we'll
fine line there.
yeah, and we'll not know,
No,
because however much you sit there and try and explain to a dog or a cat, or
right.
and if it's that close in intelligence, we'll be lucky, because it's
Hmm.
probably gonna be like bacteria to us, and
Yeah.
because the speed of thinking is just ridiculous. Like a JCB, a power machine, is so much stronger than us. So then imagine that technologically, and we could be working for it, carrying around devices that we add all the input for them already. We could have happened a long time ago, and we'd never know.
Totally.
And
The emotional attachment we have. I mean, this is just, I'm just on the last thing I want to say here before we kind of just cut this for the moment here. The emotional attachment that we have to our devices, that is scary itself. It's extremely scary.
yeah,
You know,
mine is
right.
at arm's reach, and yours is right there. Sorry.
Yeah, try losing it. Try losing it for a day.
Yeah, I had a cold feeling then.
You're
I
like, oh,
thought of the things I would need to do. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, now 20 years ago. So I mean, I remember grappling with, okay, God, I don't really want to get rid of the home phone. I mean, why would I want to get rid of my home phone? Because it doesn't. I feel disconnected. And that's when when I first started, getting my first cell phone. I was like, I don't think this is going to replace the phone. Well, I couldn't even imagine having a home phone now. You know,
Yeah.
that's how connected we are. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing. It's such it's an awesome thing, but at the same time, it is really life draining at the same time.
It is. Yeah. Do you live in a city?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I live in Los Angeles.
Do you do you meditate? Have you ever meditated?
Oh yes. One of them, the thing that it's, because this is more conspiracy related, I'm actually more personal development, self empowerment focused. So yes, a lot of meditations, especially like the theta meditations.
What's the theta meditation?
Theta, it's just that's enticing the theta brainwaves. It's using binary beats. And it's just, you can find a lot of that on YouTube. You just put on the headphones, so that way you're getting true left and right stereo. Yeah, it actually does, induce a relaxed state. And, I can literally spend like hours doing that, and just, self-empowering.
Mm. No, I haven't tried that. I do, because when you mentioned the plugging out, disappearing, for meditation. That's what I do it for. Is just you just disappear. You can just disappear, or you can be there.
Yeah,
The
right.
different levels you can be in. Yeah.
You just complete egoic, complete dissolution of your ego, and just like just kind of, drift off into just vastness, And I've done that before. It's like I'm trying to like envision what death would be like, and envision what, letting go of consciousness would be like, and trying to make yourself as small, as minuscule as possible, to where your thoughts are just, you're not even thinking, you're just letting whatever universal thought consciousness into your mind, and trying to open yourself up to that, as opposed to just having the ego, and just thinking, well, no, I am me. No, you are not you. You are just a conduit. You're a vessel, and just trying to, kind of take that form.
Yeah, yeah. The eye open one is. Do you ever do the eye open meditation?
No, I have not.
It's hard. It's harder, but it can be. It can be incredible. It can be incredible. Very, very few are the glimpses of when you don't exist. What you're looking at, everything is just. It sounds cliche, but everything becomes one. But it really does. It really does.
Oh yeah, no, and then that's when you start to realize, everything has energy. Everything is just energy. I mean, nothing is truly, the vitamins I take. I mean, it's like, not, these are, what is this? It's energy. It's something that makes us. It's a, we're predisposed to what it says on the label. We're predisposed to what we believe that it is. I mean, is it actually anything, what we're putting in our body? I mean, so it's interesting, to go down that rabbit hole right there. And that's where a lot of people get caught up with the conspiracy theories. Is this actually something that's real?
Yeah. Well, then they go down the Deepak Chopra route, and then they can, and then past lives. And I had a conversation with Lady Monk, a Tibetan lady monk, and we fell out in the end because she got very angry with me. She said she had 5 or 6 past lives, and she talked about when Buddhism came to the West, and she remembers it. And I'd read the book from I hadn't read many books, but I read the book from W.E. Wentz, I think, the man who brought the Tibetan Book of the Dead back from Tibet to the West. And I asked her, said, you must. So do you remember when the Tibetan Book of the Dead was translated by W.E. Wentz? Well, it must have been amazing when this came to the West, because that was the book that brought it back. She went, I don't know about that book. And I was, oh really? I thought you were there when the West, and then she started being narky and started giving lessons, replying to things I was messaging her, to her pupils online. And I was quite surprised that this monk, who was supposed to be enlightened and lived many past lives, was being really rude and nasty, and all of this.
Go there, huh?
Say it again. Sorry.
A little bit. I mean, it's just the irony of
sorry, ego. Yeah.
Spiritual, and you at the core you find the ego. You're like, oh boy, what are you about?
Yeah. It was.
Anyways, I'm gonna have to end this, because my phone is probably like at 4% right now. So I need to recharge here. I need to recharge my enslavement device.
I'm gonna need to sleep too. Great chat, Brad. We agreed on everything, which is good.
So we had no Jerry Springer moments. I'm sorry for those watching that were wanting that, but it's just
No, the disagreements. What I look forward to in disagreements is is understanding what the other person's point of view is, and then trying to understand it and trying to reason. That's what I love. That's one
Oh
of
yeah,
my
yeah.
most.
Well, I think that will be experienced in a few days here, to where when we do the next flat Earth. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's another quandary for another time.
A
So,
lot of fun.
anyways, I appreciate your time, man. I thank you so much. This has been very enlightening, and I've actually learned quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, same too. Mortgage. I'm not going to get one.
Yeah. All right, man. So I will speak to you soon, and we will see you hopefully on one of the next ones. All right, man.
Definitely. Nice one.
All right,
Take
friend.
care, Brad.
Appreciate it, bro.